Hello, hello, hello. It's me. I'm back again with another episode. I am so ecstatic to be back on point because this holiday season has been a little bit of a woozy thing going on. Well, I hope you all have been able to enjoy your Christmas holiday. I don't particularly partake in a specific, religious portion, but, I don't think it's about that. So we can always get into a different occasion. I just love the holiday spirit, so I do love to celebrate, and I love to enjoy family. So I got to hang out with my nephews, and of course, it was my birthday, so I got to hang out with my nephews, my brothers, my mom, sister-in-laws, mother and father-in-laws, and everyone got to sit down and relax and enjoy each other's company. So we ate like fat rats, made jokes, talked about life, things that we had going on with our own world and what we're trying to do. And just, great community, great camaraderie. And of course, there were gifts. And I'm very appreciative because I will definitely relax with what I've been given. And hopefully during the next year, we'll do the things we said we're going to do. So until we get to that particular point, I have been waiting to post this segment. It was supposed to have been started Sunday or Thursday, one of those two. And because things got so busy, I wasn't on point with that. So I wanted to get back to the episode that we were supposed to be getting back into before the holiday season came about. So I believe we last left off for Loving the Way You Are with our conversation about the things that I believe, why I created the podcast, and the importance of our inner workings and maintaining those inner workings by way of recognizing the different portions of ourselves and what all that means. All right, so let's get into the internal dialogue. As you've heard before and on a previous podcast episode of Love the Way You Are, we spoke about how your internal world is comprised of many different things, not just what you've experienced inwardly, but the external things that come from the things you grew up with, the things you believe, the things you thought, XYZ. They're all encompassing of external stimuli, if you will, and also your own internal stimuli, which creates the internal dialogue or the inner world that you live in, and creates loops if you're not careful, the wrong ones, and if you're observant enough, you can create the right ones. And typically, naturally, you have your wrong and right ones, the way that you come about them, because it's your personality that initially caused you to engage with your environment the way you do. So you may be a person that avoids things that look dreary, dark, uncomfortable, while another person may be a person that avoids things that are too bright and cheery. Your personality determines that by your demeanor, your temperament, if you will, whatever serves you as the individual in your mind as being perfectly matched for you is what you'll lean towards in your environment more than you would anything else. And sometimes the environment around you will dictate your reality and the way that you would choose things, because your external reality is being, your internal reality is actually being compromised by your external. So behavior will either change or not change, or change for the worse, change for the better, depending on the stimulation from your external world. And, there are many of us who are very resilient, who don't get very well influenced by external world. And to some degree that's bad, and some degree that's very good. And it's really dependent upon our way of looking at it and observing the way that the patterns in our life show up. As far as the external stimuli and internal stimuli concern itself, you are then having to regulate your own life dependent upon how you've been made up, or the way you've programmed yourself to believe and live your life. So we'll go into depth more as far as external and internal stimuli is concerned, because it's very important to realize that you may not be who you are because of just your personality alone. It may be that you've built up certain habits because of situations or, encounters. And some of us, we just were I wouldn't say pre-programmed, but we were predestined seems kind of right, but kind of wrong. It was kind of a prerequisite for you to have a certain type of personality, skill sets, an acute leaning into certain things, because of the fact that that's part of who you are in your journey. In order to make things happen the way that you have to make them happen, those things are kind of predisposed to you because of your endeavors, your journey ahead. So where do we start? I believe for me, it would be based upon, let's start with just when we first get here. And this isn't something I made up. It's more so from my observation, and then other people's studies that show it, which I have not referenced it because personally it was something I learned a long time ago. Well, I was able to identify with what I already believed. It just kind of confirmed. And, there are studies out there that you can research on your own, which I would always tell you to research for yourself what is and what isn't true, and go from there. But as we start off in our journey, we are starting off with a blank slate. And blank slate for me, well, let me make sure I'm very clear. We have a cornerstone, if you will, that we have been given when we first come here, or that we have been made from. The cornerstone of your being is intently the master code for yourself, if you will. And what I mean by that would be that everything else that is based off of you is based off of your master code, or the centerpiece of your entire existence is your inner work, is the piece that everything else falls behind. So you have a neutral piece that everything else can connect to. Without the neutral piece, all the other pieces can't connect. So you need that central piece, the central organism, the nucleus to your being. And that particular piece comes with its own prerequisites, predetermined personality traits, dictated by your energy work that's involved in who you are as an individual, protruding in energy and frequency into reality based from your own internal workings, your signature, if you will. All that just saying that when you first come into the world, that is your particular state that you're in. And as you come further into the world, to me, honestly, that is your only true internal stimuli, being that it was not made up by anything else. It was what you came here with. There was nothing else that interfered with that, outside of possibly science and other things that could have been manipulating your DNA strands, X, Y, Z, which is still technically an external stimuli. And you just had to cope with those particular mechanisms because you came into a world where those things may have been possible. And now, whether your DNA has been changed or not is now more so irrelevant, because it's now, or was then, your present reality to which you had to deal with. And so now you're having to encompass those particular situations for yourself, along with your external world. So when you come into the world and you notice that children are crying, in that notion, they are getting all these random signals from their senses that they weren't privy to before, because maybe they weren't maximized in that particular frequency of theirs when they were in the womb or before they got to the womb. And so, maybe those signals were a lot flatter when it came to their perception, so they weren't having to deal with them on a very broad range or, disturbing range for them. And upon entering the world, it's like taking earplugs out of your ear and you hearing someone with the jackhammer for the ground, and it's just nonstop noise. You're like, oh my God, what is all these things? These bright lights, these sounds, these people, these energies, these feelings. Oh my God. And so your first impression is from that particular standpoint, and your first reaction is your beginning reaction to everything else that comes to your life, how you respond to everything now because of your first experience, and which would typically be your first trauma, because you're coming to a world that is full of all these different things you never expected to have. Whether or not we believe or not that we chose the life we live and know what's going to be happening before we get there is another story. But for all intents and purposes, we just say, you weren't expecting, or to the extent you weren't expecting the experience to be that intensive, if you will. So as you go further along in your life, you are influenced emotionally by your responses to your external stimuli, which could be family, friends, the environment itself, the community, the things you experience from taste, touch, sound, smell. These different things have played a part or role into how you encompass who you are as an individual. And so as you keep growing up, you believe certain things because you've experienced certain things a certain type of way. And, when we first come up, we don't have any particular set beliefs beyond what we've already known from before we got here. And those are sometimes non-audible because we're not able to voice what we've known before, because, at a certain point in your age in life, you typically find yourself either forgetting or not holding on to all the memories from then that you either have to recover or has an influence on the rest of your life and how you perceive things as well, because it's in your subconscious in a way. So, as these experiences come to you, you begin to build belief systems and habits of living that come by your belief or wanting to feel safe, wanting to feel this, wanting to feel that. This experience wasn't so great, so you want to do this instead of that. And so you are making up the circumference of who you are to make sure your inner self feels safe and secure. And that comes from your inner child's experience, your growing up experience, and just becoming more vulnerable to your situation at hand, because as you grow older, you become more responsible for your way of life and thinking. And, the adults around you have taught you what they believe and know about the world. That's encompassing everything that you believe with what they believe now. And so you're having to make decisions based off of these particular external stimuli. Because before, if you really think about it, you were like a lake that had not been disturbed whatsoever. Everything underneath the lake itself was either in a deep sleep or comfortable doing whatever they were doing before. The lake is flat as you can possibly imagine that you could possibly stand on it. And the next thing you see is a rock or a bird or something plopping down into the lake. And the next thing you find is that there are ripples in the lake. And now these ripples are disturbing the lake, and everything that's below it is looking like, what happened? What's going on? What's going on? What's that? And whatever's hungry comes out of the bottom of the lake and decides to go up to see if it's food. And if it comes out to be this food, it's going to grab it, eat it. That's the ecosystem below the surface. So even before you had influence from the adults that were around you as a child, you already built up your own pattern of thinking and beliefs. And if you were given enough room to have your own influence in the world or not be too overly influenced, then your own belief systems have been created by, the things you've been given room for to experience for yourself. And more people in the world may be more protective than others and just allowing their child to roam freely. But, others have learned that it's better for you to experience and figure out for yourself certain things versus having everything around you being controlled. And so our next efforts are to literally determine for ourselves every step of the way what is next. And since we don't all remember or understand or notice these things being prominent in our lives at the time, we're just going through the motions and just feeling like, this was this feeling, this was that feeling. I didn't want to feel this. I didn't do this, X, Y, Z. And now you're wondering, why do I have either unhealthy patterns and my friend has these other healthy patterns, or I have this way of living that I just don't like or agree with, but I can't do anything about it. And you're wondering, what am I supposed to do? And changing the habits of your thinking seems to be damn near impossible. And you don't know if it's possible for you to come from one point of life to another point of life to where you're able to conjecture where you've been to find the thing that you're looking for to become, and feel like you fill that space that's not been filled in or hasn't been filled in the correct way. So now you're trying to convince yourself that, you're not necessarily in a bad way, but that you're imperfect or have these different things you need to fix. And enough times our behavior does exhibit things that we do need to work on, and that there's no argument in that in itself. It's just to say, like, you were experiencing life and took life as it came, and being present is always very important. But sometimes looking up and around you is very important as well, because to be the procurer of your own destiny means that you have to observe the road ahead and see what is there and what lies before you, so that you can make better decisions than when you were previously doing so. So in order for you to change the direction or course of direction in which you've been going, you've got to say, hey, I'm going to look into my emotions, my feelings, ask the questions that need to be asked, and do the work that needs to be done to fix the problems that I feel like are problems for me, that give me the experience that I have. And so now you're on the ballpark of, how do I get to, or rather, you're on the ballpark of realizing that I need to change. And you don't want to you do want to change for the better, and it does great things for people around you. But if it's not for you first, then the changes you make won't make a difference, because they won't be lasting, because it's not what you want. It's what you're trying to prove to someone else to be able to give to them, to get them to see or to approve or to, give you something for it. And that's never going to be the benefit and where you want to stand. So it comes to a point of realizing, is it for you? And if it is for you, now you need to change and make those adjustments as you go forward and see things for what they are. And as long as you do those things, you're able to procure the destiny that's cut out for you in the best way. And your experiences can change each and every day, and sometimes each and every second, moment, minute. Those things change because you've changed your internal dialogue. You change your sense of direction to where you want to go. And now you've put out to the universe, hey, I need a change. And so those changes will come as long as you keep doing the work. So we'll get more into the aspects of internal, external stimuli and how they have an effect upon you and your inner world and inner workings and the environment around you. So we'll get back to that. I know it's a little bit of a study, but I'm keeping it light, keeping it really cute. So you guys don't have to worry about too much information on that, because we will hopefully get into, a session on, meditation or something going forward. But for right now, we'll get into the inner workings, and we'll get back to part 2 of the internal and external stimuli. And I'll see you guys around. Ciao.